so we are doing a budget hearing today, and I'm guessing all of you are curious about what to expect with our budget hearing. You are in luck. We're going to be joined by our very own Board of Trustees President and our Treasurer. Both Rosemary and Blanche will be able to give the final quarterly board report forum and an update on the congregation's finance and proposed budget for the year ahead. We'll have plenty of time for questions and feedback. It's such a crowded room that if you do have a question today, we're going to ask that you raise your hand early so that we can make sure to get to it. But without further ado, for all those online, if you can visualize just a crowd all the way back to the entrance, you're really missing something here. But I will pass it to you, Rosemary, and let's kick this off with some fun.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So I'll just get started with everything. I'm going to start with the overview of how our budget has done from July 2025 through April 2026. Our actual income through April, it had to end in April because we don't have May's numbers yet, and we still have June to go. So, but for right now, at the end of April, our actual income was $369,352, and then our actual expenses through April was $345,937. So we have an income exceeding expenses for right now of $23,415. If May's numbers turn out great and also June's, at the end of 2026, if a surplus occurs, that amount will be added to the building reserve. That's the plan because we got a lot of projects and upkeep that needs to be looked at and done. Let's see if I can get this to move down. Oops. I can't seem to get it to, oh, maybe I'm not clicked on it. Here.
Oh yeah, you got it, yep, and then a 2-finger.
There.
Oh, here's that one.
Okay. Oh, maybe I was going the wrong. No, I'm just on the mouse. And so, okay, there we go. Or no, I went the wrong way. I'm still learning how to use technology sometimes. So now on to the proposed budget, July 2026 through June 2027. So we've had our pledge income is potentially $305,000, and that's increased. Last year we had a budget where there'll be a comparison, but it was at $300,000 that we were planning for last year. Nursery school rent increased to $56,813. Building use income increased to $10,000 on our budget proposed. And then we have an operating reserve, $81,299, and I'll get into telling you what that is. There's been no changes made to open plate, special events, and rummage sale income compared to last year's budget for 2026. And then expenses, we've had a staffing increase to $320,015. Includes cost of living raises of 2.4% and benefits increases. Some of the expenses for insurance and keeping good benefits for our staff has increased. Other expense, which includes utilities, inspections, general operating system software, and all our other expenses beyond staff, those costs increased, so we have budgeted $140,247 for that. And let's see. Go. Okay, so then this should be up there, the yearly budget comparison summary. And in the first column is our 2027 budget. The other one is year ending June 2026. So you have a comparison to see how things have changed from 2026 to year 2027 that we're proposing. So you can see that year ending June 2026, we had an income total of $440,858. That has increased to $460,262. And you'll see the contributions in there, miscellaneous income, the comparisons for those, and operating reserve. And again, I have a slide for definitions so you know what those are, and I'll get to that. Then we have our expenses, and in 2026, our budget at the time was for $439,262, and that's increased to $460,262. We had a little bit of a surplus for 2026. We don't know what that entirely will be until, again, end of June, but we balanced a budget and worked hard, and Blanche is going to say more of that, of the work we've done behind the scenes to get a balanced budget for this year. So some definitions. So the contribution income includes pledges, open plate cash, and nursery school rent. The miscellaneous income includes building use, special events and fundraisers, and the rummage sale. The operating reserve, which might be a different term than what you're used to, that's a dedicated interest-bearing account that receives special donations for operations. So in the past 2 years, we've mentioned that we had like a special donation for, we call the Opportunity Fund. This year we also had a person do some special donations. So we're putting that, because of the anonymity of such things, we're putting it in operating reserve so that when we can use it or need it, we use it bit by bit. Of the opportunity funds of the past 2 years, we only needed to use about 17,000 of that. So that's still in that account earning some interest. And then of course, any new things that come in at any time of the year, that can go into that, earn interest until we use it. Oh, question?
Operating reserve, is that different from the building reserve?
Yes, it is.
Okay, where does the building reserve fall? Does that fall under other?
Building reserve, that would be probably in other expenses, and that's its own account as well.
Separate, because it's pertinent to me.
Okay. Okay, and so then staffing expenses include the minister, music director, accompanist if we have one, director of religious education and their assistant, church administrator and her assistant, food service coordinator. And then other expenses include office, utilities, building and grounds, department committees, programming, music, growth, outreach, UUCD community things that we do, organizational things that can include anything from the, and then denominational, UUA fair share, and other miscellaneous costs that go to running our congregation, our church. And so that's what I have for you. Is this where we segue?
Sure.
And so this is Blanche.
Woo! Thank you, Rosemary. I just want to make a few comments about the budget. First of all, we had a very successful pledge drive this year, and I want to call out the pledge team for that effort. As of May 13th, we had 101 pledges, 46% of which were either new or increased pledges. And that, yes, it's very successful. That totaled about $273,000. Pending is about 21 households that have typically pledged in fiscal year 2026. And Kathy estimates that money amount would be about maybe $33,000. Plus there are some automatic bank donations that come into our operating income. Okay. Despite that successful pledge drive, we did, in the middle of May to the end of May, which is right now, have a significant operating budget deficit of about $45,000. Our operating expenses at UUCD over the last 5 years have increased by about $100,000. And it's been a steady increase over time. The operating reserve fund represents contributions by single donors of large dollar amounts. And that accounts for about 17.6% of our total operating income. So I'm very grateful to those individuals who have done this and the households that can contribute that amount of money to our operating expenses. And I want to stress that the donors were clear that they wanted it to go for day-to-day operating expenses and not for any special designation. So I'm very grateful to them, but wanted the congregation to understand that without those contributions, our budget would be in deficit, and this would mean a big decrease in spending to be good stewards of our finances. Looking at our operating expenses, costs have gone up for utilities, for insurance, and we have very little control over those things. We must get our elevator maintained and inspected. We must, have our fire safety inspections, those sorts of things. So what is under our control oftentimes are staff expenses. Staffing expenses are about 46% of the total operating expense. And we do have 8 staff individuals, but we only have just under 4 full-time equivalent FTE staff people. So a full-time equivalent is a 40-hour, one person working full-time. So only one person, our minister, is a full-time staff person. Everyone else is part-time. And I was looking on the UUA website, and it was kind of interesting for congregations of our size, which are between 120 and 230 members. The median amount of expenses for the operating budget is about $348, and the range has been anywhere between $190,000 and $737,000. I don't know where those people are, but they're not us. Yeah. They need to be benefactors somewhere. And also those congregations do have between 2 and 4 FTEs, which is kind of where we are. Other things I just want to mention, we did have a slight decrease in utilities costs because of our solar battery. And I want to mention food and fellowship. There's a line item now this year for about $5,000, which is what our food and fellowship food costs. And the board talked about this. And thanks to Amy for giving the board a clarifying question about whether or not we want food and fellowship expenses to be a ministry or self-sustaining. And of course, if you're dealing with money, we'd love it to be self-sustaining, but we also recognize and the board supports it as a ministry. So those are my main comments, and just open it up to the audience. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Blanche. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you have been putting in with all of the finance team and everybody to really do a deep dive and look at these numbers. One of the things, since you mentioned food and fellowship, that is an increase this year from previous years, is that one of the ways that I think about that expenditure is we don't have a marketing and advertising budget, which a number of congregations do have, like outreach, like budgets that are specific towards outreach. And I think that there are ways in which our food and fellowship budget and really committing to that as part of our ministry, as part of our outreach, increases our visibility in the community and really works toward sustainability in the sense of getting people in our doors, helping people to find out who we are and where we are and what we're about, so that we can ultimately increase the number of pledging units and donations over time to make this a more sustainable community and congregation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thanks, Sarah. She didn't mention the nursery school, which is one of the things that we recognized early on to have a sustained partnership with a little business. It's very important to the community. And it also gives a much more dynamic and full use of our building day in and day out. But we don't market to those families.
Mm-hmm. That's yeah, the nursery school is the second biggest line item in our income, as you know, and it has increased by a small amount. The nursery school is trying to hold their tuition costs down for young families in this economy, and we support that. It's been a small increase. I also want to comment too that I'm very proud of the board for voting for a cost of living raise of 2.4% for all staff. I think that speaks to our values, and I'm really grateful that we can afford that.
I agree with Sarah. This is something I've been thinking about literally for years, that we don't do that visibility outreach. And as I have spent many Sundays over the last 3 years in a welcoming committee, when new people come in, one of the things we ask them is, why are they here? What do they need to know? And by and large, they just say, well, we want to know what it's all about. And we don't have, if you will, an elevator speech. We don't. Someone said, well, go look at the library. Well, that doesn't say anything. It was embarrassing, frankly. And I think we're really, and this is something I've talked off and on to Allison about, it's not a criticism, it's a lack of what we do. And if we're going to reach out in the community, we've got to be able to tell new people what this is all about, and why it's all about. When I look out on a Sunday, there are a lot of gray hairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to hear.
But shiny.
And so I think there's a real opportunity to attract younger people, and that should really be a focus. I get really sad on a Sunday when they walk out to RE and there's one child, and I know that's really difficult for parents to manage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that part of my speech. The other concern I have is that we are depending upon some very large gifts for our budget, and that is not sustainable. When I look at the expenses, like Lance said, how would we balance this? We have some expenses that are you can't do anything about. So what are the variable expenses? Staffing. And that I would never want to decrease staffing. And so I know the board has done a lot of really hard work, but this is up to now the congregation to figure this out. This is the board. People have to step up to the plate. And as I recall, 2 years ago, the total gifts, if you will, amounted to around $70,000. And I don't know, when I look at this, it looks like we've set aside 81,000, which is really wonderful. But when that's gone, over the years that our expenses will continue to increase. And so this just gets worse. And
I'm getting a little depressed.
Highlight.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
we have
yeah.
to be honest with ourselves.
You're right, you're
So
right.
thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. Thank you for making that, Jim, and it is very important. I'll just leave it at that. You said it. Oh, Heidi? Oh, yeah. Rosemary was.
I will say, I love what you said, all of it. When I was part of another congregation, we realized that we're not really evangelical. We don't go out and pronounce, we have good news for you to the wider community like other churches do, because they're preaching, life things. And also we deeply, I think one of our values is we deeply respect people's own paths in life. And that's hard when you're having conversations. But yeah, on the other hand, we do need to look at things more closely because we have big visions. We want to help everybody, and helping takes work with our bodies, but also work with our finances as well. So it's just some commentary for that.
I remember what I was going to say. So one of the things that's, and Heidi, too, one of the things that I think that is good post-COVID is that we've maintained our membership numbers. We're around 211 members. And from what I understand, RE has struggled since COVID across the country. And so the board recognizes the importance of RE. I was talking with Matthew Johnson from Mid-America UA, he's our contact person, and he asked me directly, are you cutting your RE staff? Because some congregations had made that decision. And we said no, because we realize how important it is, whether there's one child or 10, that's critical for the liveliness of our congregation. And pre-COVID, because I'm an RE teacher also, there were days when we had 3 kids and days when we had 12 kids. And the numbers are lower, but we did have that variability when Katie Klein was here as well. So thank you. Heidi?
So I noticed on the income comparison from fiscal 26 to 27, a slight increase in miscellaneous income. Where are you anticipating that will be coming from?
Let me give that to Rosemary.
So the to bring back to definition, miscellaneous income is our building use, special events or fundraisers, and our rummage sale. When we did the prior year's budget, we actually decreased the rummage sale, what we expected from it. And this year, that number has stayed the same at $7,750 for the rummage sale that we're hoping we will reach, and hoping we go beyond if we can. I think our experience was for 2020, 2025, 2026, we went beyond that. But we always do things conservatively so that we can account. And then building use income, we had increased from 7,000 to 10,000. And that's based also on experience of this past year. We had more building use than we had expected. So we were accounting for a range, for that 10,000, accounting but not going to, expecting maybe there might be still an increase, but accounting for the increase as well. I don't have the chart of how much we actually made from building use, but it sounds like it exceeded. I'm pretty sure it exceeded that 7,000 that we originally did for 2026. So that's where that's coming from.
There was also an increase of $5,000, in pledges that we estimate based on based on what we have already collected in pledges, from 300,000 to 305,000.
That's not the miscellaneous.
You're right, it's not miscellaneous.
Um,
I'm a nurse, so.
So,
We love you for it.
I'm gonna mention that not included in that, or included in that number was food and fellowship revenue of 5,000, but there's also a contra account that took that away with expecting expenses from that food and fellowship of 5,000. Let's see, what else? We have special events. We kept that the same at 1,500 from 2026 to current proposed budget. Go ahead.
I'm curious as to what we charge for people to use our building and whether that fee has remained flat or whether we've increased it.
We've increased it a little bit, and there's a tiered charge depending on what people want, whether they want tech or music and audio, whether they want to use the building space, I do not know the specific details, but we have increased it a little bit. That's a very non-specific answer.
I have
And
one.
I have a follow-up question to that. Is it the board that decides these rates?
Probably ultimately, do we have a specific process for looking at that every year? Not outlined specifically, that's a good idea.
I will give experience that we had this year, but it's a very small item. During the winter, the year prior to 2026, I think we didn't do where people could store their cars. This year we did discuss in Finance Council storing the cars, renewing that, but also whether we would raise the amount. And we raised it minimally, but I kind of did a little Google saying, okay, what is storage for cars around the area? And gave an idea of what that was. And then we decided, okay, amount comparative yet very economical for a person. Any other questions?
I'm going to segue off a little bit. Oh, there is a question. It's comment.
And this is positive.
Jim, you're a very positive person. I didn't mean to give you a hard time.
And this has where Sarah's gone, but this is a follow-up. About 3 years ago, I read a Pew Research report, and the conclusion was that of the people that they interviewed, there was a huge amount of people that they all agreed with our UU principles. And so that is a real opportunity to get our information, our values out into the public. And so I would really support some kind of publicity, if you will, outreach. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Questions?
Okay.
I'm wondering if any of you all have a memory of our people going to other faith communities, especially those who thrive. Every Sunday morning, I drive by a church that has a huge parking lot, and it is overflowing. And I plan this summer to visit that faith community to see what is drawing those people in there. Have we ever done that? Would anybody want to join in that effort just to see what's cooking? I think for this particular faith community, where I ride by, I think it's the music. It's I think they have an orchestra many Sundays, and it's just jumping. And they have tons of young people. According to a friend who goes there, young people are coming in every single week.
I think we've seen some young people, or younger people, younger than me people, in our congregation. But you're right, Kathy, that's a great comment. I have seen younger faces here. Yeah. Any other questions? Is there something online?
I looked and it was just an answer to Allison's question that I shared with Allison.
Oh,
So thank you,
great.
Kathy. Kathy also had a great comment around the importance of our forums for being another way of bringing other people in, which I might be biased about, but I agree with. So.
Yeah. If there are no more budget questions, I just want to segue briefly onto a proposed bylaws change, which is sitting on the easel as a poster that has to do with program council. So this is something that's going to come up at our annual meeting. And if people want a copy of what's up there, I have a few copies. But we're asking the congregation to consider a change in our bylaws regarding program council. The change is the result of a reorganization that began in 2024. Program council was not very consistently attended and was in need of revitalization. And through some listening sessions, we got feedback from the congregation that went all the way from we should abolish program council, which was on the table at one point. And then when we considered that further, folks really said, no, we see a value in continuing program council. However, some of the functions of program council have to do with coordination and facilitation that are now accomplished in other ways, such as the UUCD big calendar. And the program council leadership, which was historically assigned to the vice president of the board, in some cases inadvertently resulted in the leadership of program council, the vice president of the board, being unfamiliar with or uninvested, less invested in program council. And in that situation, the leadership was less dynamic, and sometimes we even had some trouble getting people to volunteer to be vice president of the board because of that function. So the proposed bylaws change for program council really addresses some of these concerns. We have over 32 committees and groups for 211 members, which speaks to the commitment of all of us. But it's very difficult to run a meeting with 32 people. And so it divides the committees and councils up into functional group, a representative from each functional area. And those are the folks that will be attending program council regularly. Anyone can attend program council at any time. But those 7 members will be the program council representatives for the committees underneath them. And so these functional groups are mentioned in the bylaws change, and it also changes the leadership to a co-chair model where one person is a trustee, an appointed trustee by the board, and the other is a lay person who's familiar with program council and experienced with program council together. And so we'll be voting on that. The proposed bylaw change, I want to shout out to Allison Litterman for crafting that for us. And it's on the board there if anybody wants a handout about it. I have that if you are interested. Any questions about the program council? Yes.